Welcome to another video from DIY Daily. Just put together a short video, just running you through a fault that we've got with this 2013 Audi Q7. Basically this one's a non-runner, we've got a permanent fault code in it, and the fault code that we've got is P0091 Fuel Pressure Regulator 1 control circuit. Now I'm just going to run you through a load of information about the fault, the regulator, where it is, some of the tests that you can do, where I'm up to with this one. Long and short of it, I'm going to be replacing the regulator. I'll update you later in the video as to whether it fixes it or not. There is a possibility of it being an ECU fault, but this is the route of diagnosis that we're taking. Yeah, so basically on the system, it's got permanent fault with regulator 1. Now, there's two different regulators on it. Now, regulator 2 is this regulator there, which sits on the end of the fuel rail. There's a fuel pressure sensor in the system, which is this sensor there, but just at the minute you can see we're in the stripped down state. We've actually got the inlet manifold out the middle of the V there, but the pressure sensor actually goes into the rail on that end there. And fuel pressure regulator 1, the item that we've got a fault with, or sensing a fault with, or picking up a fault with on the diagnostic machine, this one there, actually sits into the high pressure fuel pump, which sits right in the middle of the V, right at the back of the engine. And this is why I've had to strip the manifold off to access it, to get it out properly. But if you just look through this gap just there, this is the connector for it there. Just sits in there, you can just see fits in with a couple of bolts there. And when the manifold's on, it's really tight. You can just reach in there to undo the clip on the connector and just pop the connector back, but you can't really get the connector out. If you're a bit rough, you can sort of force it off, but luckily for doing some tests on it, it's quite good. This connector there actually just comes round, just round this side there, and it actually comes to this bit of harness there, which connects into that. So luckily you can actually test it at this harness there, and the two wires on it are the white and green and red and blue. And if you just look on the bottom there, we've got the, where it says pin 4, we've got the red and blue wire, and pin 8 there, the green and white wire. So you can use your multimeter on them bottom two to actually test for resistance through the regulator. And in doing that, if you've got resistance, you know that you've got continuity on your two wires, and it's not a wiring fault in this harness to your connector as well. So, but just looking at the wiring diagram, now I'll overlay some screenshots of the wiring diagram in a bit more detail and show you the exact procedures to do as well. But I've tested all the wiring on this as far as I can go. There is a possibility of it being an ECU fault, but we're taking the gamble and taking the route of replacing this regulator first, to try that first before going down the ECU route. Now these regulators, the factors and the dealers only sell them as part of a whole new high pressure fuel pump, which is obviously mega expensive and again a lot more involved to fit. The only problem I had is I had to get the regulator out to get the number off it to try and have a search to find one. And I'll put, if you check the description below, I'll put the part number of the unit and I'll put a link to a regulator and where you can get it from as well. It's just at the price of this, it's going to be worth trying the regulator first. And with it being a permanent fault code, it is more likely to be an electrical issue rather than like a mechanical issue. If the fuel pump was failing, normally it'd allow you to clear the fault code and then it would pick the issue up as soon as you sort of cycled the ignition or tried to start it again, whereas this is permanent. But basically the checks that you can do on the regulator, so this is the regulator there. Do a resistance check across the two wires. It should be between 1 and 5 ohms, which, so when I was testing mine, I did it across the two wires there, and I actually had a reading of 3 ohms on it. So I know there's continuity through the wires to the regulator, and it does come in tolerance, within the tolerance there. The other thing we can do, we need to check the 12 volt feed to the regulator, which comes in on pin 2 there. Now there is a fuse in the system and a relay as well. And that fuse is relay 13 in the fuse box and relay 14 in the fuse box again as well. And that's just the under bonnet fuse box, which is just located under that cover there. The other thing we need to do is check continuity between pin 1 and A45 on the engine ECU. Now to do that, It's not too bad to do. Again, you can check it from this plug there, but obviously on the other side, the engine ECU is just located under there. Now, the only problem that you will have, the ECU just holds in with a couple of plastic tabs there. It's actually quite easy to get out. I can't remember what connector it was on, but it's on one of these. You'll find the 2 pins there. Now, this originally, unless yours has been took off, might actually have a security tab over the top of it, but luckily on these Audis, it's not too bad to deal with. You can undo the ECU, just pull it out, and the security tab just stops you taking the connectors off. But basically what you can do is just use your grinder, just put a couple of little slits in the bolts, then you can undo the 2 bolts with a flat bladed screwdriver. And once you've got that off, you can test your continuity between pin 1 on your regulator and your ECU as well. And you can actually check the operation of the solenoid as well. Again, you can do it just through that connector there. It is a 12 volt regulator, so you're okay to use like a power probe and basically just listen for the regulator clicking. Now, I just powered it up through there and I could hear the regulator clicking, so that was a good sign. But at the minute, it's a permanent fault. I'm hoping it's going to be related to the regulator, so what I'm going to do next is get the regulator fitted, and then we'll let you know if it fixes the fault. So there is a possibility it could actually be an issue with the ECU, but for the price of it, I'm going to try the regulator first. It's just a little bit of a pain that to get this regulator off, you've got to take the manifold off. There's no way you'll get it out. You just cannot access it without getting that manifold out, that's all. But if I just show you the manifold, you just see it's quite a big lump. I've ordered some new manifold gaskets. Obviously they really want to be replaced while you've got it off, but there is quite a few bolts on there holding that on. I've taken this front section off with it as well. There's some bolts sort of holding these 2 pieces to secure them up as well, and obviously a fitting for the pipe there. See a bit of trim for the wiring harness. One of the fuel pipes has come off, breather hose, a load of brackets on there as well. Now, it is a little bit fiddly to get the manifold off. It's not too bad, but things like the injector return hoses come over the top of it, so you'll have to undo that from one side to pull it out of the way. Quite a bit of the wiring harness and plugs have to come off and get them out of the way. Some of the high pressure fuel pipes at the back, again, they sit just over the top of the manifold and make it a bit tight to get out, so you need to undo them. I've taken one fully off, and one of them, I think it was on this side, I've just undone it and just eked it back a little bit just to allow the bit of room to get it out. And when you have got all the bolts undone, you will find as well, sometimes the manifolds can be just stuck down a little bit, and you want to be careful because you need to make sure that obviously all your bolts are out, but sometimes you just need to give them a little bit of a light prying just to crack the manifold off, that's all. Sometimes you just get really stuck down, that's all. But yeah, the manifold's obviously off now. It'd be nice to just plug this connector in and try and clear the fault code. Obviously, because it was a permanent code and I couldn't clear it, it would sort of tell me quite quickly whether it was going to be the issue or not. But the problem is, because the manifold's off and all the fuel pipes are off, it's got pre-pump in the tank. Not really going to be able to do that until I've built it all back up. So I'm going to sort of skip through the stage where I'm refitting it, but I'm just going to get the regulator fitted now, get everything back together, and then we'll come back to the video once I've done that and just show you where we're at. Hopefully it'll clear the fault and it'll be running. If not, we're going to have to carry on the diagnosis and go down another route. We might be having to send the ECU off, but so I'll crack on now. I'll get all that done and then we'll update you shortly in the video and get back to it. But yeah, hopefully we can get this fault fixed. Right, so I've just got in the vehicle. Now, the only thing I have just done just before trying to clear the codes and start is just cycle the ignition a couple of times. But just do that. You can just hear, if you can just hear that, the fuel pump's working in the back. So just because all the pipes have been off, you really want to cycle your ignition a few times just to prime the fuel system. But yeah, let's just do a full scan now. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we can clear that fault code out. Right, so as suspected, obviously there's quite a few fault codes in there due to having all the loads of sensors disconnected and stuff like that. There's going to be a few bits in there. Now, this was the one that we was originally looking to clear that's permanent and that we can't clear. So let's just do a full code clear and see if we can get rid of it. Right, so it's not looking good news at the minute. The fault code is still in there. We're just going to try and start it up to start with, and go from there. It looks like we might be having to spend a bit more time on this one. Let's just give it a bit of a crank and see. It's not looking too good at the minute. It looks like we might be having to go down the ECU route now and sending that off to get tested. So we'll do a little bit more digging into it, see if we can get a bit further along and update you shortly. Right, so it's 2 weeks later and we're back on the Audi. Bit of good news, a bit of bad news. Obviously I'd fitted the regulator. I took that, it was a little bit of a gamble. I wasn't 100% sure if it was going to be the regulator or the actual ECU that was the fault. But with the cost of the regulator, I decided to go down that route and try the regulator rather than going down the route of sending the ECU off. I don't really like to condemn ECUs. I've not had to replace many in my time in the trade. Normally I tend to find the faults ends up being someone else or a wiring issue, and sometimes if you send it off and they're not 100% sure, you end up sort of committing to a repair cost and it not actually being that. So, but unfortunately this time it obviously wasn't the regulator. I've sent the ECU off to a company called ECU Testing that we use. They're in the UK. There's another one that we sometimes use called AC Tronics. They couldn't actually test the unit when I give them the number. ECU Testing have tested the unit. They've confirmed the unit at fault for the code that I was getting. The only problem is that it's too bad to repair, so they can't actually repair the unit. So we're a little bit stuck in limbo land at the minute. Well, there's a couple of options. I might be able to get a decent second-hand one, send the second-hand one off back to them with this one, and they might be able to make good out of it with the other ECU. But at this stage now, I'm a little bit unsure what we're going to do. Might be having to look down some different avenues, see if we can source another ECU from somewhere. So hopefully we can still get it sorted. But yeah, I'll update you a bit more, well, hopefully in a few weeks, if we can get it up and running and get some sort of answer and get it sorted. Right, so we're back on the Audi job. It's actually about 4 weeks later now. It's just, obviously we'd narrowed it down to the ECU, but we just had to leave it with the customer just while he was deciding what was sort of the best route to take with it, that's all. And he has come back to us now. He's actually managed to find an ECU that's been cloned from his old unit. So we've got this one back. He's dropped this off to us. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this is going to do the job. So we're just going to get it all put back into place now. Obviously the battery's been off it for about a month, so we'll just get it all reconnected up, do a code scan, see if we can clear the codes. Obviously it was a permanent fault there before on that regulator, so hopefully we can now get it started and get it back on the road again. Just quickly for now, not clipped it fully into place, just want to get it obviously powered up and just see whether it's going to fix the fault for now. So yeah, we'll just get the battery connected back up and get it hooked up to the diagnostic machine. Right, so I've done a full code scan there. Obviously the ECU's been off, it's been sat for ages, so you can just see I was expecting quite a few codes in there, but without clearing it, I can just see the engine control module is all green, which is a really good sign to start with. Let's just clear everything anyway. Right, so let's have a look. We've just got a couple of codes left, one in the ABS, steering angle sensor. That might clear once we get it started. We might need to calibrate it again, might just be due to everything being left for so long. So another steering angle sensor code in there as well. But yeah, let's give it a crank now, see if we can get it fired up. I'm not convinced it's going to fire straight up, obviously. The fuel system has been apart as well, but let's give it a crank and see what happens. Oh, trying. Oh, we're idling. A little bit lumpy. It's a good sound. That's a big relief to hear that. So always don't really like condemning ECUs. It's to be honest, in all my time in the trade, I've not actually replaced many ECUs for a fault, and that's why I did sort of go down the route of just trying that regulator, even though I wasn't really convinced it was definitely that to start with. But yeah, this time it has turned out to be an ECU fault. I've just put this video on there as well. Hopefully anyone with the same issue, just give you a bit of an heads up on the code and what it might be. And if you've got if it does appear that it's obviously that the regulator is okay, it could be an ECU fault. But yeah, just for now, I'm just going to turn it off. I'm not going to leave it running too long. Obviously, I've just chucked the ECU on at the top there. I haven't fitted it into place properly, but we know it definitely runs now. So yeah, we're just going to, let's get a few bits back together and just see what happens. Obviously, once we've got everything back together, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to run through a few bits. We might have to do like a steering angle calibration and stuff like that as well. But yeah, just update you shortly. Just get a few things back together. Obviously the battery's out, the seat's out just to get the battery in. But yeah, let's get it all back together and just finish the video off. But yeah, thumbs up. Nice to get that job fixed and get this vehicle back on the road again. It's obviously been stood for about, well, all in all, for nearly probably 8-9 weeks now. So everything's back together under the bonnet now. ECU's tucked correctly back into place there and all clipped back up. Just give it a quick clean up, just get the battery on now, give it a run, give it another scan. Right, so everyone's back together inside now as well. Obviously under the bonnet's all back, the seat's all back, the battery's all back together. Just give it literally just a quick run just to clear anything and just let it realise that all the ABS system and everything's okay. So we're just going to do a quick full scan on it now and just see if we need to set the steering angle up. So just on the full scan there, just see we have got a steering angle voltage fault there. Now I have had the battery disconnected again, just while getting everything back together there, so some of these faults might be due to that. Let's just see if we can clear it out and just try and run through the calibration anyway. So just see it will clear all the faults there. And if we just go into special functions, you can see we've got steering angle sensor learning there. Just clicked on the wrong one, so we're just going to run through that now. And let's just see if we can set that up. And just see, done a full code scan now after we've done the steering calibration. Nearly got a full bill of health there. Just a couple of little issues left. Something in the air conditioning ECU there. And what we got? An issue there in the comfort system. So nothing that we're worried about. We've got the steering angle fault out, the engine ECU. And obviously the main thing we've got that engine fault sorted. It runs spot on. All I'm going to do now is just really give it a decent road test, probably put at least 15-20 mile on it, and then when you've had the fuel system disconnected, really you want to be once you've ran it, leaving it to sort of overnight and then checking it in the morning. It's just if you've got any slight air leaks into the system, the fuel will run back and it'll tend to start badly in the morning or when it's been left. So yeah, just going to give it a decent run now, just check it in the morning. And then after that, this can all go back on the road and back to the customer. Yeah, hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.